you for the opportunity to be here today. Lord, we give you all the praise and the glory. We ask your guidance as we make decisions. We ask for your strength, your wisdom, and your continued blessings on Levy County. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll entertain a motion to adopt our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Welcome, everyone. We're going to have a big morning. We're going to start right here with our friends from Williston Elementary and Williston Middle High School with a little report. Madam Superintendent.
You just gave the
I gave it all away. Y'all want me to do it for you?
Sure, come on.
You couldn't do as good as a Will Surrender.
We are very,
Oh!
we are very happy to have you here this morning.
We are happy to be here. We always love to brag about what's going on our campuses. So Williston schools do a cross-age peer tutoring program. And the bus picks the kids up at the high school and drops them off over at our school and at JDE. A couple of years ago, I think maybe my first year as AP, I had done all this research, getting a master's. And one of the things that I had done a paper on was cross-age peer tutoring and how powerful it can be. And it was showing how kids can make like a year and a half's worth of growth in 1 year. And so I had approached the subject with Josh at the time, Josh Lynn, and he agreed. And in the past, they've done something similar to it, where the kids go over and read and things like that. So we just wanted to kind of fine tune that process. And so he agreed, and we've started it, and every year we've kind of grown and gotten a little bit better. But the definition of peer tutoring is an approach in which one child instructs another child in material on which the first child is an expert at, the second child is a novice. The major benefits are academic skills, developing social behaviors and classroom discipline. It's not just for academics, enhancing peer relationships, and it even gives the kids higher self-esteem. And they see that holds true for both sides, for the tutor and the tutoree. So this is just some research. Being closer to the knowledge and status, the 2D in a peer relationship feels freer to express opinions, ask questions, risk, interaction between the instructor and the student is more balanced. And if you know John Hattie, I'm a huge fangirl. There's a little picture of me and him up at the top. I got to meet him this year. He has an effect size, and any 0.4 is what they call a hinge point, and so anything bigger than 0.4 they consider more than a year's worth of growth. And so you can read some, I won't read it to you, but you can see the effect size of peer tutoring is 0.79, which is almost 2 years growth, which is awesome. And it just is very impactful for students, especially students with disabilities. I think it makes the students feel freer to learn and not embarrassed to ask questions, and they just kind of listen to other kids better than they listen to adults sometimes. So some of the things that we realized when we were doing this program, and we've kind of added every year, is the tutors have to be trained, and very specific training. We train them on, how to handle behaviors. We train them on, what to do when they go into a classroom if the teacher's in whole group. What do they do at that time? How to pull small group. They are taught ELA strategies. They're taught math strategies. And we do that right in August in the very beginning, and then they get a recap in January as kind of like a refresher. Michelle comes over, and Michelle Eastman, almost called Ruiz, comes over, and Heather was coming over and doing the reading portion. In the beginning of the year, the kids are great with helping us get everything started up. The badges is a big thing, logistically getting them into classrooms. So right in the beginning of the year, they get trained and then they help us kind of do some logistics in the beginning and get to know the campus. And they're a huge help. They're such a huge help. Any moment you can jump in with it.
Well, on our side, obviously, we just provide the kids to them. With Ricky and I working close, I mean, she had a kid last year and she's like, she will not stay off her cell phone. So I was like, hey, you're gonna turn in your cell phone when you leave the high school and then you can get it back when you come back. So we really looked at the kids that we're sending over there. We take about a week and a half to sit down with parents and families to say, what do you want your schedule to look like? And if peer counseling is something that they're wanting to entertain, we kind of lay it out for them. You know, you're not going over there just to hang out and play on your phone for 2 periods. You're working with kids, you know, you're helping the teacher, you may be grading, you may be working one-on-one with a kid, you may be doing small group, so that we're getting the right kid for Ricky.
And we've kicked some kids out if they don't do what they're supposed to be doing or they're not taking it serious. I make a phone call and they're really quick to change that schedule. And we tell them in the beginning, like we show them the data, like this is how powerful the impact you can make with these kids. Like I got lots of hope in y'all and what you can do for our kids. So we try and tell them the importance of their task. Okay. Like I said, we learn every year. Cell phones are the bane of all of our existence. So we just created this really simple little keeper, and they get there, they sign in the morning, and they put their phones up, and they do a really good job of doing that. And others are really quick to rat other ones out. Someone had her phone today. But it has caught, like, this year has been the best year since we've started it, with just because we add to it every year and we learn and we know what not to do, and the selection process I think gets fine-tuned every year as well. So I can't say enough great things about our tutors this year because they're just amazing. Here's some pictures. This is over the past couple of years. The top 2 I think were last year. The bottom 2 are this year. But they're pulling small group. They're working one-on-one. They're providing help for kids if they're on a computer program. We have some behavior kids that need a little extra guidance, and they're able to sit next to them and kind of keep them on task and on track. Here's some more. One thing that I really do love is we have some peer tutors who are bilingual, and we have a 27% Hispanic ratio at our school, so they're very helpful. They go in and work in our community classrooms, and they are really able to give those kids some extra assistance, which I just love that. And a lot of these kids know these kids from the community. They look up to them, and we created a little video. Taylor, what do you like about being a peer tutor? What do you like about working with Cheyenne?
I like how she cooperates with people and doesn't get mad at you, and how she does, and even if she doesn't know the topic, she still finds a way to help us.
And what do you like working with her about?
But she's chill, she's
Oh.
she doesn't know anything, but she always asks me some questions sometimes.
I like helping the students because I already know what students are and with my kids, so I can be a teacher.
What do you like about being a peer tutor?
I like that because I never know what students I can't see and I want to learn.
Can you ask her what does she like about working with a peer tutor?
She said that she likes how the teacher is positive work with her. You know,
what do you and your high school tutor love?
He was 100.
What do you like about having a tutor?
Yeah, they help you make your work there. They help, they actually was really well the last time.
What do you like working with your peer tutor the most?
She's really helpful, she's nice, and when I need help on something, she always makes it so I can understand.
What do you like?
So I like she's patient with us and she helps us a lot.
And what do you like?
Whenever I need help on a question on my homework, she'll help me explain how to do it and she'll go through it with me.
What do you like most about having your high schooler in your class? And what do you like most? And what do you like most about helping the students in your class?
I like showing them how to do it and I like showing them helping them.
And do you think being bilingual helps you in the classrooms that you're in?
Yes,
Do you have any questions for us on our program?
I have a question. So are they working with the students in a particular program, or it's just whatever the need is at the time that they can?
So is what the teacher is doing at the time, that they're always in there at the same time. So like if that teacher is pulling small group at that time, she's usually pulling small group every day. And then we have the same materials that they use every day. So depending on the teacher is what materials they're using during that time.
Did the girls have something to say?
That's what I was gonna introduce. This is Izzy. Izzy's at Williston Elementary, and Adrian is at Joyce Bullock. We do have kids that also go to Joyce Bullock as well. Adrian is actually in my nephew's class, and back in September, I was like, "Hey, what are you learning in school?" And he's telling me everything. I was like, "Is Miss Adrian in there?" And he's like, "Miss Williams' sister." And I was like, "Yeah, Miss Williams' sister." So.
That's actually what I was going to say. I feel like from our point of view, it does feel like that they can really connect with us. A lot of the times they say that I remind them of their older siblings and I go to school with their older siblings.
yes.
So it's definitely relatable for them. And it's also personally for me, I feel like it wasn't mentioned, very rewarding. Every day they
Yes.
tell me something new that they learned, or they tell me their entire spring break in detail while I'm trying to get them on the computers or trying to get them to learn something. So it's definitely very rewarding.
Good. Do either of you want to teach?
In the second batch,
We're recruiting them young.
Yeah.
it's definitely rewarding because when you get to see the students actually be able to understand what they're struggling with, and for them to be able to get through it and work through it and get their grades to be higher than what they want.
Yes.
I remember when I was in school, I was a peer counselor at Joyce Bullock, and I remember how rewarding it was and how the kids really looked up to you, and they said they were kind of plugged in because you was kind of that generation closer to them versus a teacher. So
Right.
They
yeah,
definitely think you're like the cool.
that's right. That's right. I remember that in high school and all that.
Well, we appreciate you girls doing that.
Do you have a funny experience that you can share that happened?
That's appropriate.
Oh, come on, Rick.
Oh, my mom, she has a class turtle, and actually yesterday the turtle, we let it loose and we lost it.
Oh,
So all the kids took quite some time and a lot of laughs. And we made up a lot of stories about where the turtle could be.
They're great though. They participate in like all of our days. Like we have dress up days, and a lot of them participate in that. And they'll even bring snacks in for their class. And I'm like, we can provide that. And they're like, no, we want to do it. So and they really take like ownership of their class.
That's great.
Did you find the turtle? I thought we were going to have a bigger problem.
No phone calls.
No animals were harmed.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Very good.
That's
Why were you
that's
nervous?
awesome.
You did great.
I just, you never know.
You never know.
I was afraid like I say something and you guys start typing.
It's in the minutes.
There for a while, I wasn't gonna let you watch my pet turtle, but now that you found
She was worried if she did a bad job that the whole peer tutoring would be closed.
it, we're gonna vote on that later.
I'd like it to extend.
Yeah, that's
Chief
great,
Lynn
sounds
Bronson.
great.
Yeah,
To share what you do with them.
Well, it started when the high school and Joyce Willick were so close.
Right.
Walk over.
That's right.
If you ever talk to Hunter Fugit and ask him his peer counseling story, it's really great. When he was in high school, but I think that it's a great program. I told them out there, I didn't want to be a teacher, and my peer counselor, she was a second grade teacher, and I was like, maybe I could do this. Maybe it's something I want to do. So I think it's a good program for both parties.
I know a school where it's just across the street.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
know.
that's how it was.
That's what
We used to-
my mind was turning.
And they can use it.
They could use it.
I
Thank
just
you.
need a crossing
Thank you.
guard to stop
Yeah.
traffic.
You're fast.
Apparently turtles are fast.
Apparently.
Yeah, apparently turtles are awesome.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. I guess we should give you a hand.
Now, did I say you two could come up yet? Y'all got somewhere you need to be?
Always.
Brian, help you with this? It may not be too good.
Thank you for having us. That's going to be hard to follow. I always love hearing great things that are going on in our.
You remember I was their peer counselor? You remember?
Many,
In the office, yeah.
many years. I
Many-
remember being mistaken for a peer counselor when I first started.
You wasn't much older than someone.
But yes, we've had a lot come through, and it's such a worthwhile program. Thank you for letting us come today to share with you the state of pre-K. So pre-K is growing. It's become a very robust program in our county. We've got a lot of legislation that has come down in the last 3 years that I haven't really shared out. We've been trying to figure out implementation, so I just wanted you to be abreast of everything that's going on and some new legislation that may be coming our way in pre-K. And I have my handy sidekick, very distinguished principal who has our largest pre-K program. She currently has 7 classrooms of pre-K at Joyce Willick Elementary. So just a recap of what we provide in our program. It is a full day school-based educational opportunity for general education students in the VPK program. A little over 50% of all of our classrooms have these general education VPK students. We provide, it was decided many years ago before my time that we would provide a full day program even though we only get reimbursed from the state for half a day because we felt it was important that the students get that full experience of the school day. We also serve special education students that are eligible for early intervention through an IEP. Those are 3-year-old and 4-year-old students that take up about 49% or less of a classroom. And we do full day, we do half day, and we also do walk-in services for students that need specific interventions. We are aligned with the Division of Early Learning Goals to increase kindergarten readiness, to build high-quality programs meeting individual needs of students, and to increase the knowledge and skills of early learning professionals. So I take these goals to heart in everything that we plan for our program. So let's get into the numbers. I've only been here for 4 years, so you've got 4 years of data because that's when I started collecting it. When I started in 2021, we had 9 full classes and 5 half classes with 205 students. We currently have 14 full classes and 1 half class with 255 students. So we're seeing growth while other grade levels may be declining in enrollment, pre-K is not. We definitely are seeing growth in both our VPK students as well as our special education students. We started off in 2021, we ended the year with 77 ESE students in our classrooms. We're at 86 currently as of today. And anticipate having some more staff before the end of the school year. We also serve walk-ins, and we started off with 14, we now have 9. That decrease in walk-in services is because more parents are actually taking us up on our full-day school-based offer instead of wanting walk-in therapy. They want full experience, and so we're seeing that increase in the classroom. You'll see we also started 3 years ago an employee child program. For this program, as an incentive and a way to retain staff, We have employees that can pay to have their 3-year-old child. I allow one per class, that they pay a very small rate compared to daycares to be able to have their 3-year-old come a year early into our classrooms. And so you'll see that has fluctuated. We started with 6. Last year we had 15. This year we have 7. So really it's just based on the needs of the staff. Revenue. So where we get our funding. One VPK student, if they come full-time for the 540 instructional hours, generates $2,808. An employee child, if they come for the full year, generates $3,340. And an ESE student in full day attendance is $5,905.39. So you'll see how our revenue has grown each year. This year, it's a little bit lower. You'll see it's highlighted because those are projected numbers. We haven't finished the year yet. So I'm kind of projecting based on the number of enrollment for our VPK revenue and our employee child revenue. Our ESE revenue, we have not had Survey 3 numbers released yet for us to accurately calculate that. So that's based on Survey 2. I anticipate that's probably going to go up about $90,000 because we've had 16 additional students staffed between Survey 2 and Survey 3 that are being served. So we probably will see something very similar to last year in our revenue. Then we go to our expenditures. I know it's very small and hard to read, but you'll see the top half of that shows salaries. The bottom half are other expenditures, including subs. Equipment and supplies is really furniture for new classrooms. Travel for our pre-K ESE teacher, who is an itinerant teacher and serves all 5 schools. Her salary, part of my salary, and then a planning period supplement. Actually, Adrian's mother is the only teacher I have that she gets paid a planning period supplement to push into pre-K during her planning period and to help us with serving because our caseload is so large at Joyce Bullock. So she's part of that as well. Currently, 99% of all expenditures are salaries and benefits and subs. So less than 1% is used in equipment and supplies, in-county travel, and summer planning hours for our ESE teacher to come up and get started early before pre-planning. Salaries have significantly increased in the last 3 years. I've got a note on the top of 22-23 is when the $15 an hour went into effect. That affected all of pre-K because all of my staff are paras. And then the following year, we also had the lead teachers go to a new pay scale, which is only one step lower than the highest pay for paraprofessionals. So those 2 increases in salaries did significantly increase our total salaries. So the majority of our classroom supplies, though, I do get through federal grants. Ms. Jerry is my lifeline to all things title. So we piggyback off of federal grants as much as possible. We got a significant amount from ARC, $200,000, which in my world is significant, and we were able to go in and replace a lot of old and worn equipment in the classrooms, kitchen sets, play sets, food sets, and then we also were able to purchase over $100,000 worth of supplemental books to supplement our curriculum for each theme. But all of that has been grant funded, so that we've been able to really focus general fund just on paying staff. And then our expenditures do exceed our revenue because we provide a full day program, so we pay full day staff, but we only get reimbursed for half of those students for a half day program. So I changed this. The saying is all I really need to know. I learned in kindergarten. It was a book that came out in 1986. Yes, I was already in education at that time. And I've changed it and added pre-kindergarten because things have changed significantly since that book came out. I personally, 26 years ago, was finishing out my first year of teaching in a kindergarten classroom. And my kindergarten day was whole group circle time, centers, small group, recess, and nap. And that is now what it is in pre-K. That is no longer what kindergarten looks like at all. But that is now what our pre-K classrooms look like. So when we look at laying that foundation for all academic years, we now see it in our pre-kindergarten classrooms because we're teaching them all of those things on how to be a citizen of school, how to get along with your classmates, how to share, how to clean up after yourselves, how to go through the lunch line, and get your lunch. So a lot of those foundational skills, we now have students that they're needing to get it in preschool because kindergarten has such high academic expectations that they can't wait that long. So the Division of Early Learning recently put out this information. It's not new research. I think it continues to be refined as they get more information each year. But kindergarten readiness is extremely important, now more than ever, with all of the increased demands of our standards. For children who enter kindergarten behind, roughly 75% will never catch up. So if we don't get them ready for when they enter kindergarten, 75% of the students will never close the gap before they graduate. The strongest predictor of later achievement is what they come in, school entry, reading, math, and their attention skills. Their ability, again, to participate in the classroom. State and local pre-kindergarten programs, almost without exception, improve academic readiness for school. Participants in preschool score higher in third grade language arts than non-participants. And participation in early childhood experience increases graduation rates. So we definitely have an impact that lasts the 13 years that come after preschool. Last year, we have lagging data, unfortunately, in VPK, so I have last year's 2023 kindergarten readiness results. All kindergarten students in Florida, 51% of them showed readiness on the STAR Early Literacy, having that cut score at that time was a 690. In Levy, 48% of our students showed kindergarten readiness when we looked at the whole kindergarten. And then compared to that, VPK completers in the state of Florida last year, 64% of them were kindergarten ready, and in Levy, 57% were kindergarten ready. Looking at that improvement in comparison to the year prior, the state went up in both areas, only 2%. In Levy, we are closing gaps. We increased 5% of all kindergarten children and 6% in VPK VPK completers. So I'd like Hillary to kind of share her perspective. As I said, she has our largest program. Out of our 15 classrooms, 7 are at Joyce Bullock. So it's a significant number of children, and she can kind of share about kindergarten readiness.
So we, like she said, we currently have 7 classes. There are a lot of little people to do a lot of training at the beginning of the year, especially. But we're going to have 101 of those going into kindergarten next year. So that's a great number that we've already had impact on. And I would say that sums up why pre-K is so important at our school is we have touched them before they get to kindergarten. So we've set our school expectations, and then we've taught them how to be students. Because the kids that come from other VPK programs in town that are run a little differently than us, not saying anything negative against them, but they're just run differently than school is run. Or they're coming from home, and that looks different for every kid. It could be positive for some kids, and then not so much for others. So we have to train them the first while on how to be kindergartners, and before we could ever hit the ground really running. So we're very fortunate that we're having such a large number roll into our kindergarten each year. So last year we served 6 classes of pre-K with about 85 rolling in to kindergarten. And of course, give and take a few that may choose to do something differently than attend JVE. So our current kindergarten class is 183 students. 59 on our last PM 2 STAR early lit, 59 of them were already proficient. And over half of those were in our pre-K last year. So we're making up what's proficient because we believe that early intervention and early learning is really impacting us there. And it's even more so in math. 52 students were already proficient, and 62% of those kids that were already proficient were in our pre-K last year. Students with discipline referrals, 15 students in kindergarten. It feels like it probably should be a little bit more than that. But those 15 students keep us busy. But 15 students in our kindergarten have generated office referrals this year. 4 of them were in our pre-K class, in our pre-K group last year, and 2 of them we were aware of. They're gonna take a few more years to work that out of them, probably. So, you know, to me, it's the whole picture. It's not just the academics and the preparation, it's teaching them how to be citizens of our community at JPE and of the world, and how to interact with others appropriately. So we're like the foundation of all things, learning and being a kind human being. 66 students in kinder have, in the third quarter, missed 10% or more of instruction, and only 35% were in our pre-K last year. Kinder is a big year of people not taking attendance seriously. It's like they know that they're in that letter of the law of they can't really, at the age of 5, be turned in for truancy. I don't really feel like they're aware of that. They're just like, it's kindergarten, because they think of kindergarten like what the old kindergarten used to be. So we've worked out, because those kids have been in our pre-K, we've been able to work with people a little bit more on why attendance is important before they step into kindergarten the next year. Super exciting this year, our fabulous reading coach and math coach. We saw a need in the data that's being generated in pre-K for some acceleration of some students. So we have a nice little group of 15 or so that they're pulling several times each week to give them acceleration, because they need more than what pre-K is providing as far as academics go. So I'm super excited to see what they do. I firmly believe that not one shoe fits every kid. So I was talking just yesterday, we have kids on our campus that have wacky schedules, but it's because we're giving them what they need. So they may go here for this and here for this, but it meets their whole picture. That's something that I feel like our staff works really hard to provide for them. So next year, if they're knocking it out of the park, some of them are already reading coming out of pre-K. So then it's going to be, what are we going to do for them next year? I haven't seen as many as I've had in the past couple of years, and this is just kind of a side note, of kids being able to skip a grade. So I've had several skip kindergarten in the past couple of years, a couple skip first grade. So it's pretty cool to see. You know, sometimes we hear a lot about the opposite of the end of the spectrum sometimes, but we also have kids that are being accelerated even at our level. And to me, a huge thing, and I feel like sometimes we can get lost in our complaints. I feel like I hear from that he's got to stop staffing these kids over there in the district office, and these kids that are coming in that are students with disabilities. But it's such a powerful thing to have them already on our campus, and such a high percentage of those students on our campus already, because we're at like six or so in every single one of our classes of students with disabilities in pre-K. And so we're touching them early. And actually for a few years for several of them who come in at 3, and they literally will be 2 when they have the meeting, and then we'll be waiting until they turn 3, and then they step in the door. So we get several years with a lot of them, and that just sets them up to be successful when they enter into kindergarten. I feel like, you know, if they would have stepped into kindergarten without having services prior to that, they may have needed a more restrictive setting than what they need once they've been in our kindergarten, which is all inclusive. So I feel like we're able to keep our separate classroom numbers down, because we realize that, oh my gosh, this student may have looked like this when they walked through the door at 3, but by the time they are ready for kindergarten, well, they don't need that separate classroom. They can just go into a general education classroom and receive support services inside their classroom, or they may need a duly certified teacher with an aide. I feel like that enables us to be less restrictive for kids with students with disabilities, because we've had them for a few years. So summary is, my gosh, why not? I feel like you're only going to benefit. I feel like it benefited us largely this year, that people in our community that have VPK programs didn't have their certificates ready. So we were inundated with kids, and that, you know, we have quite the number of kids this year, but it's only going to help us in kindergarten. And those kids are going to be gonna be more ready to tackle the things that kindergarten has for them, versus the kids that are in a different program somewhere else or at home. So.
And speaking of students with disabilities, and just kind of putting it in perspective, with Child Find, of course, we start evaluating students whenever it's brought to our attention by age 3. So our goal is, again, early intervention. A lot of these students qualify as developmentally delayed, and then, we see more and more of those children not needing services once they get to age 9 or 2nd grade, because they started at age 3 getting intensive intervention. But thinking about our numbers, we, in the last couple of years, we've been tracking how many evaluations and reevaluations are done district-wide. And district-wide, from pre-K to 12th grade, we typically do about 300 evaluations or reevaluations. A third of those are pre-K. So we evaluate almost 100 students a year, ages 3 and 4, every single year for the last 4 years. So we believe, again, in early identification, which leads to early intervention, and gets those students in and getting services before they're even required to attend school. And does VPK make a difference on 3rd grade? So this is Levy County data. Thank you, Melissa, for sharing the report card information. You'll see the websites you can get this. So this is tracking the data from 2020 up to last year, 23. The blue line are 3rd grade students who scored a 3 or higher that attended VPK. The green line is they attended but did not complete VPK. And then the teal line are students that got a 3 or higher but they never attended a VPK program. There is a note that the 2023 data, those were the kids that were affected by COVID. So it's a little bit skewed compared to the other trends that you see because we had a lot of non-completers the COVID year of pre-K.
They're scared of the.
Yes.
That's the other thing. They work out all their little immune problems in VK so that they can get in kindergarten.
Of course, anytime that the state gives you funding for anything, there is accountability. And so we have both VPK accountability, which is one measure, and we have ESE accountability, which is another measure. For VPK, this was a new state statute that went into effect a couple of years ago, but this year, it will be the first year that we will actually receive a designation in a performance metric for our VPK program, the 24-25 school year. So how we perform this year will be public knowledge. And this replaces those kindergarten readiness rates that used to be advertised for programs, private and public. It is now considered a VPK performance metric. The way that it is calculated, though, I am very excited, the mathematician in me, because we actually look at not only student data, which has been the trend previously, but also what's going on in the classroom. So half of the VPK performance metric is based on the quality of the classroom. We have state observers that come in using the class observation tool, which is a federally adopted tool, has been used in Head Start for over 20 years. So they come in and they observe our classrooms for 2.5 hours using that tool, and we get a composite score. It's on a scale of 1 to 7. And that is 50% of the overall metric for that school program. They also show some accountability that if we get below a 4, we lose our contract for the next year. So we have to keep that high quality going on in the classroom, and that's been a focus since this came out 2 years ago, that we've been really working on improving our teacher quality and that student-teacher interaction to meet that requirement. The other 50% is broken into 2 parts, 30% in learning gains from PM1 to PM3 on Start Early Literacy, and 20% achievement. And achievement is then meeting the CUT score, which was a 690 for Start Early Literacy, is this year has been raised to 707. So the state is raising the bar a little bit on the first year that we're going to actually be graded. But we were knowledgeable about it, we've been working towards it. So we are looking, what I love is it's not just looking at achievement, which historically, that's all pre-K has looked at, is kindergarten readiness, but we're also looking at learning gains so that we can see how far we've brought these children from the moment they stepped into the door. Part of the state statute does not allow a letter grade, so they had to do designations so they could not be confused with our K through 12 grading system. So our designations run from excellent to above expectations, meets expectations, below expectations, and unsatisfactory. Below expectations and unsatisfactory are placed on probation. The state rule for that just was approved by the state board this month. On what that means, it's a lot of paperwork to be a provider on probation. Anything meets expectations and above, though, is free and clear. And they're also looking at possibly giving some compensation to those that meet excellent range if there's enough in the budget to do so. So there may be some performance pay that comes from this. So whenever they adopted the metric, they went back to the last 2 years of data and gave us an informational only score of what our programs would have scored if they had been graded in the past 2 years. So of our 5 schools, you can see their performance designations. BES went from meets to above expectations, same at CES. CKS went from above to meets expectations. I have to commend Ms. Cripps because her school has consistently performed at the highest designation of excellent for the last 2 years. And Yankeetown is above expectations. So we don't have any schools at this point that are in danger of being placed on probation, and they're excelling. They're above what the state level is. In ESC world, the year I came on board, they adopted a new way of grading our system using child outcome summary. So this looks at the Florida Early Learning and Developmental Standards. There are 167 of them across 8 domains. And how students, special education students, are performing when they enter our program against those standards, and how they are performing when they exit our program, and what growth they made. There are 2 summary statements that I'm responsible for answering to. The first one is basically based on where they came from. Did they make growth? The second one's a little harder. It's how many of them are on grade level when they leave pre-K. So that one's a little more challenging. Last year's data in Levy, on that first summary statement of kids making growth, we met the state target. In fact, we exceeded the state target in all 3 outcome areas. I'm also happy to say that we exceeded the state average in all outcome areas. Our teachers are doing a great job, and I really believe our inclusive model speaks a lot to that, because we hold high expectations for our students and we don't dumb things down for them. However, we're still working on that summary statement too, of getting them to grade level. We're getting closer to the goal, but we're not quite there yet. So legislative updates, besides that performance metric, we also now have to define early literacy and math deficiency in our students after PM2. A new state requirement that started this year is we are required to provide interventions to students that score below the 10th percentile on PM2 for the second half of the year. So we did that this year, and we're looking very closely at that data, and they get daily intervention in the classroom. We also, for the first time, are going to be required to provide VPK Summer Bridge, which is VPK Summer School. So students, not only in our public school program, but also in the private school programs that score below the 10th percentile, we must provide summer school for them, 100 hours, aligned to the Florida Early Learning and Developmental Standards with a 1-to-12 ratio for the teacher. So right now, we are planning for 2 programs, one at Joyce Bullock and one at Bronson, that we will be offering for those. We will not have the data, though, on who's going to be attending until after this PM window closes. So we have about 2 weeks to get the data, invite the parents, and get them in. But we projected, based on PM2, that we were going to have about 20 eligible students, so we prepared accordingly. A bill to watch. So I know that y'all are like me, and you just like to read Senate bills over the weekend for fun. So I've been looking at some of them. And this one kind of, I had that face whenever I read it. It increases the school year VPK program from 540 hours to 1,440 hours. So with a 180-day school year, that would increase our program from a 3-hour program to an 8-hour program. So it's just to kind of be aware of that, because I'm not really sure how that would work with transportation and all the things. On the good side is, usually when they put it in statute, they fund it.
Right.
So we would hopefully
benefit from that.
benefit financially from that decision, but it's going to definitely have us thinking outside the box in other ways if we have to go to an 8-hour day for VPK children. And some planning that I did with my district leadership team has been so supportive of our program. We are adjusting classroom units based on projected enrollment, which we do every year. We're going to have some shifting of units from one school to another. One school is down, another school is up, so we just kind of shift those around. We were also able to work with Ms. Jerry on some funding for an additional pre-K early intervention and ESC teacher. Our current ESC teacher serves all 5 schools. She has a caseload right now of 86 kids. It is insane. She only can do 1 day a week at each school. And so for us to really be able to do what we need to do and provide services, we want to slowly start adding additional special education support. But it also is slow because we can advertise and it doesn't mean anyone's going to apply. So we're going to try to get a teacher where we can split the county, and the one I currently have will serve Joyce Bullock, Yankeetown, and then have someone to serve Bronson, Chiefland, and Cedar Key. And that way we can increase the amount of services that we're providing, both to teachers and students. And then we're going to continue with coaching support and professional learning opportunities so that we can keep growing our schools. Any questions?
That state observation, do they just come once a year?
Yes. And the way it's worded in statute is they come that once. If you score below a 4, you are allowed to pay the coalition for one additional try.
I see.
It's $300 to pay them to come back. Thankfully, we've never had anyone even close to being that low. Most of our composite scores range from low 5s to low 6s. We stay pretty much in that range.
So I know you say that you're coaching and providing support, but for instance, our teacher at Cedar Key, meeting expectations, what support are you offering her?
We actually had, so my ESE itinerant teacher is also a state class trainer. So we keep up her certification. There are no special education students at Cedar Key, but we still had her going there twice a month to model. So she has gone in, she had modeled lessons, she has helped her work out her schedule. She took it where it's based on the schedule, she would model a section, and then she'd come back and observe her, give her feedback. So we used a coaching model to support her. That shift was a shift in instructional staff as well. So for Cedar Key, we went from a veteran, retired teacher that we talked to coming back to a brand new, we helped her get her CDA credentials, first year in the classroom teacher. But I can tell you that I go to every observation and sit in. I'm allowed to do that as a director. And the observer said the change was significant. She commented as we were leaving that she could not believe it was the same classroom.
Her score is just,
yeah,
I just talked with her,
hers-
her scores just doubled, didn't they?
Yeah, she's like a 5.67 from the 4 point something that she was. So
She's
she
improving greatly.
She made significant improvement.
And what is the criteria for hiring an aide for pre-K? What credentials do they have to have?
For a para, it's the same as our regular paras. For our lead teachers, they have to have a CDA in early childhood or an AA in early childhood, or they can have a bachelor's. And then they are required to do 20 hours for the VPK side. There's 15 hours of emergency literacy and 5 hours of standards training on the 167 standards that we have in pre-K. They have to maintain the emergency literacy every 5 years. They have to take another class. So they have to renew certification now, just like our regular ed teachers do.
So you say they can have a bachelor's, but we don't hire people with bachelors because I know years ago there was a push for that in the
Well, and I
pre-K,
can
especially
tell
when
you-
you see how important it is.
From the state level, especially with our Chancellor Carrie Miller, that's a long-term goal of the state, is eventually pre-K will be certified teachers with the same expectations. But they have to put their funding behind it before it can happen.
Yeah, right.
Because our funding just doesn't meet the salaries of a certified teacher.
And as far as entry into pre-K, anybody is accepted, or is there a certain number in each community that can
Well, I
attend?
do it based on classes, so for, what I take is 11 VPK per class, which beats that 51% of general education. And then I leave the remaining spots for special education students because those come throughout the year. So if we try to adjust accordingly, I have had years, last year was a year that we had 12 that stayed on the waiting list that we never were able to open another unit for. But we look at, I start taking in spreadsheet of all the ones bringing in their certificates from January 1. And by April, I usually can predict how many classes we're going to need, and that's where we've adjusted for next year. So we try not to turn them away. That's why we added a 7th class this year to Joyce Bullock, because we had enough to create a whole other classroom.
It was 2, when Annabelle went, there was only 2. That was 11 years ago. And we're going from 2 to 11, that we have cash with them.
Yeah, we've grown a lot just since I've been here, but it
Yeah.
continues to grow and the accountability's there, so, we're trying to make sure these kids are ready.
It's a hard job. I mean, 3 to 5 is a big, and then you have the non-English speakers, and you have, I mean, it's a tough job.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, my VPK instructors are amazing. They do what really, truly none of our other teachers are expected to do. They're 100% inclusive.
Right.
They have multi-age, they change diapers.
Oh, yeah.
They do all the things, so they're really amazing instructors. And for them to get these results consistently, I'm always in awe of them.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
As we transition to Mr. Bennett, if y'all want to head out and go back to school, not you, Fugit, everybody else.
I've only gotten 45 emails.
Thank you.
Thank
very
y'all.
much, guys. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Mr. Bennett.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So you've had an amazing presentation about research and practice on peer tutoring. You've had an extensive presentation on how pre-K is going to save the world. And I'm going to talk with you about firewalls. So
I hope you're gonna do a song and dance for it.
listen, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. So, in all seriousness, it is time for us to renew what is really our biggest cybersecurity package that we have. It's been a few years since we've had this up before the board, and we work with a vendor named Fortinet. I wanted to take a minute, because it's a big package, to kind of go through the different components of it and some of the reasoning behind it. But before I launch, I do want to single out and say a huge thank you to the 2 gentlemen in the back of the room here, Mr. Lawrence Friels and Mr. Joseph Locke. They developed an excellent relationship with our Fortinet sales representative and did a lot of really great work trying to make this the best possible package for our district. So kudos to them.
Thank you.
So what's included? I'll say that you have a little bit of supplementary materials in your package, and in particular, you may want to pay attention to the cover letter that I have that has a few more details in addition to this. The biggest component of this package is what we call our firewall. The firewall contains both hardware and software components, and it's essentially the thing that keeps both the bad guys out and provides filtering for the internet for our district, for both students and staff. That filtering is something that is a requirement for our participation in the federal E-rate program, which is how the majority of our network is funded. It also helps us stay in compliance with other laws like the famous TikTok ban and things like that. So when we looked at how to renew our package this year, one of the things that we chose to do was what we would term right-sizing the hardware in our package. The hardware that we have now has very similar functionality to what we would be getting under this, but because technology has advanced, we have been able to really downsize the cost of what we had currently to a smaller package and maintain that functionality. We also eliminated a significant component on the software side of the firewall that we just don't deem as critical anymore. So again, that's kind of a nod to a little bit of cost savings. This package, by the way, does include the antivirus protection that we need as a district. So that's the big component. We have also included, kind of as a package, you know, Mr. Asbell, we think of when we bundle home and auto, we're trying to bundle as much as we can.
Appreciate that.
So one of the things that we chose to bundle was FortiFish. This is actually replacing a contract that we currently have with a different vendor for a very similar product. And this product is something that allows us to simulate phishing attacks for the district and then provide training to our end users on what to look for in potential phishing scams and things like that. So again, that's just replacing something that's out there under a different vendor. FortiMail is new. We have seen a very dramatic increase, as have pretty much everyone in the industry, with the volume of phishing attacks. That's kind of just been a general change in the landscape. And so this is an additional component that we felt like we needed. And if you just wanted to imagine Serena Williams standing between our email and the outside world with a tennis racket, that's basically what this does. It's trying to make sure that we keep spam out, that we keep viruses out, and that we have some tools in place so that we don't lose any data in situations that might be related to phishing. FortiVoice. So when last we came before you with a security package, one of our big concerns at that time was we had a lot of computer hardware that end users were using, old machines that we could no longer update with security. And through the hard work of our departmental staff, we've been able to retire a big portion of those end user machines. But the other piece of that has now become present is that over the past 5 to 10 years, we've transitioned from the old, what you would call a copper line phone system to a true voice over, or we're getting to a true voice over IP system. And so those voice over IP phones are essentially little mini computers that have to have security updates in the same way that a computer would. So the industry has moved away from copper. Telecom providers like AT&T are no longer supporting copper phone lines, and they're trying to get them retired. And so there's really no going back from voice over IP, but one of the consequences of switching to voice over IP is you have to keep your hardware current. And so that's one of the reasons that we looked at incorporating this FortiVoice package within the larger bundle of our Fortinet renewal. And basically what this will do is it's going to replace our current Avaya phone system. We have a current contract for maintaining that to the tune of about $13.5. And it will be replacing that and also buying that new hardware that will allow us to continue to have security updates to those end user phones. And also another little piece of this is that there's some legislation out there that when you are a user that has to call 911 from one of our devices, from one of our phones, there's some very specific requirements now in law about what kind of information that phone call is supposed to provide to emergency management. And so we need units that will be able to be compliant with some of these new standards. So that's the reasoning behind FortiVoice. You'll also, in the quote, you'll see quite a bit of training and configuration. That's because one of the realities of cybersecurity software packages like this is that they're very vendor specific. And so if you get to know and get to implement a system like Fortinet, there's a pretty high amount of training and configuration that you have to go from one vendor to another vendor. And so you always see that when you have a component like this, it's always part of the package. Our implementation, though, will be by our staff. It's not going to be somebody coming in. This is just training to support our staff as they do the upgrades. So that's what's included in the package. I wanted to take just a moment to talk through several different considerations or questions that you may have, the biggest of which really is cost. And this is just a reality, unfortunately, of the cybersecurity world right now. Everybody's seeing escalating costs, and it's something that, I'll be honest with you, I've pressed our staff very hard through this process to try to keep our costs down as much as possible because it's expensive. So they did work, like I said, with that great relationship with our vendor to try to address it in several different ways. One was, like I said, we tried to eliminate some of those hardware components that we no longer needed, software components we no longer needed, downsize when we could. We looked to a longer term that I'm going to talk about in a second to see if we could get some cost savings there, and tried to, again, to wrap around bundles and any other products as we could within the package to try to provide some cost savings there. Things that we knew we need to have, maybe we were getting it from other places, to try to include within this package. So finally, we also were able to negotiate as part of this basically a free short-term renewal from the end of our current contract to the end of this fiscal year. So that was a little bit of cost savings we were able to get in there for us as well. So that's the costs question. On the question of how are we addressing changes in security landscape, like I said before, we've seen a big increase in the amount of issues that we've had through email, so we've tried to add that FortiMail component kind of as a response to that. Hardware going out of end of service life is now an issue with our phones, so we tried to include that to kind of patch that hole, so to speak. And then trying to maintain that security awareness training for end users, which has been something that we have found extremely useful. And just as an illustration of how that works, if we have a situation where we have an actual attempted phishing attack, and we, like any district our size, have had those, we can immediately take whatever that attempt was, fashion it into a campaign, and then push it out to all of our other users so that everyone else understands if they get something like this, this is how you need to respond, and this is what to look for. So it's very adaptive, and it's been very useful. I had mentioned earlier that we don't really, there's a big challenge in regards to cybersecurity because the systems are so vendor specific. If you tried to switch back and forth a lot through like a bidding process that always awarded the bid to the lowest bidder, you're going to dramatically increase the amount of time and effort that has to go into making all of those conversions over time. So because of that and other reasons, this is really pretty much with everyone a game of direct negotiation. And so that's something that is allowed for information technology under some of the information that you have in your packet. And I just wanted to be transparent about that this was not a bid process, it was a direct negotiation. Then we get to the term of the package. This is the other thing that's obviously pretty unusual to come before the board, and that is this is a 5-year, 6-payment package. That's a long time, and our staff is very comfortable that we're with a product and product line that's going to be able to stay current and that we won't have any issues in that regard. But the big reason we did it is if you look there at the cost savings, you're looking at anywhere, and this is being extremely conservative, probably $50,000 plus per year savings by going with a 5-year package. Now that assumes about a 2% inflation rate. What we have actually seen is probably closer 5 to 10% over the last few years. And what Fortinet themselves will tell you is to budget 10 to 15%. So those numbers that you're looking at are 2%. I asked them to be very conservative in that regard for you. So that's basically some of the big things that made this package the way it is. And we wanted to pause there and see if we have any questions.
I do. What would the transition be like?
Good question.
You know, the
So
timeline.
we actually, as part of that extension, they're actually going to extend our current system for about a month beyond June. And so between when this is approved and really about the end of July, we'll have our existing system and be working on building out the new one. You'll see there when you look at the quantities on some of the items in the quote, you'll see that part of this system does include backup systems. And so whenever you look at updating a firewall or something like that, it's a critical piece of infrastructure. You always have a backup. You try to shift, but you have the old ready so that if something doesn't work out with the new, you can quickly shift back to the old and maintain stability. So that's all built into the package.
Did y'all follow up on like references from other people who might have had the same software?
We actually, our gentlemen back there are part of a group called Intact,
Okay.
which is kind of an offshoot of NEFAC, and they work with other like districts in size and things like that. And there are some other products out there, but several of the other districts do use Fortinet. It's considered pretty much a, if not an industry leader, a well-known name.
Gotcha.
In the industry. So.
Is it normal for the down payment to be so much?
So the reason for that is that we are trying to use a couple of different funds for covering the cost of this, and there are slightly different rules for how software versus hardware can be paid for. And so the down payment is really where we're paying for a big chunk of the hardware that's part of this package, if that makes sense.
Okay. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Clarify that. We're able to use capital funds for equipment. So we're commingling funds, that's the only way we can move forward to afford the software, is to commingle these funds, because we originally paid for our first 4 or 5 year term using ARP funds. So we knew this day was gonna come and it was gonna hit the general fund, and general fund cannot bear the total weight of the software. So this was a really great way to commingle those funds to make it more affordable for general.
Okay. And they can keep up with it by doing this. All this stuff is constantly changing. They're
Yeah,
confident
and that's
Staying.
3 years from now, they're gonna be.
That was a very specific question that I asked the gentleman in the back, and I can let them speak for themselves if you like, but basically, yes. And part of the PD that's in this is PD to help make sure we stay current, system stays current. These modern firewall type systems are constantly updating because they're linked for all the other people out there that have similar systems. If an issue is reported somewhere in, I don't know, Ohio, that then becomes something that Fortinet is aware of, and then is pushed out to the rest of us in a preventative fashion, if that makes sense. So it's just an inherent part of modern firewalls.
This is the way to go.
Yes, sir. So so part of it, like you were saying, part of it is hardware. The other part is subscription service that we pay to the vendor to keep everything updated. The way we have integrated the system is we have a main point, which is the internet access, which sits in the room over here. That's where our firewall's set, and then you have endpoint protection. So the endpoint is everything out in the world. So laptops, desktops, everything that's the end of the line. So the way we have our security set up is our main point of internet access is also talking to our endpoint of internet access. So that all the communication, they're all getting instantly updated multiple times an hour. The FortiGuard labs are constantly monitoring the entire world. And as they find stuff, they're putting in, it automatically uploads to our firewall and also translates to all of our endpoints. So it's a very complex system, and they make it ends up being easier for us to manage everything because those updates are horrendous. I can just tell you that we constantly do updates to everything all the time. But in this package, now not only are we protecting our endpoints, meaning laptops and desktops and servers and now we're also updating all the phone systems. So all of those, you don't believe it, but there's a lot of hacks to get to that traffic that VoIP server or voice over IP is using. There's a portal that has to let that traffic through, and having compromised or vulnerable hosts on the other side of it allows somebody to come through that portal, which is what a firewall does, allows stuff to come and some other stuff not. So in order to do that, or what we want to do is make sure all of that is just as secure as every other piece of equipment that we have. We update firmware, we update software, we update all these packages to keep everything in tight. And part of I joke about this all the time. I can do all of that and make this Fort Knox. We can do that, but I can't stop somebody from clicking a button. And that's where the FortiFish and the training programs come in, because I can't eliminate the human element out of everything. So We've actually been working on this package for, well, technically 3 years, because that's when we got them first, and we were like, how are we gonna do this? But we've been working 6 straight months, back and forth, back and forth. The vendor has been excellent in helping us figure out a way to cover the cost, and this was the absolute best we could deal with, and Lawrence can tell you, we've never seen a deal this good. They actually gave us an extreme discount. It doesn't sound like it, but it is an extreme discount, like over 50%.
Would you also hit on the hard, maybe they can interject, the hardware when we spoke earlier? You know, in my mind, I was thinking all this new hardware with the phones, are we taking a step backward because technology is moving forward so quickly?
Yes.
But the way you explained it and some of the benefits that this hardware will give us in the rooms throughout
Right.
the district.
So, you know, we have schools that are varying ages in terms of how long they've been built. And so some of our newer schools were designed and built with phone extension designed for every room. That's partially a security feature. Some of our older facilities, we've had to retrofit, and that's been the gradual process that we've been through over the last 5 to 10 years as we've moved to voice over IP. And I think where we're at now is, you know, we're getting a stock of phones, devices essentially in this package, but we need to, and I've had this discussion with the guys, we need to stop and pause and think, where do we really need those extensions to be within the schools? Are there places where we need to shift what they have? Are there places where there are extensions that we don't need? Are there places where we do need extensions that we don't have them? So, you know, now that we're essentially deployed, are we deployed where we continue to need to be deployed? So that's one of the things that, and this does tie into security. You know, you want to have as many different routes for someone that's having an emergency to be able to communicate as you can. So that's a big consideration for phones.
Yeah, I would say it's a very complex package. There's a lot of moving parts. It covers a lot of aspects. I mean, it's all in the scope of cybersecurity. And also, as Morgan pointed out, it's part of the filtering and just for the staff and the students, protecting the students. In our schools, we house a lot of very sensitive data, and especially for young individuals that, you know, potentially any kind of breach of that data, they may not know that effect for years until they go to actually get a bank account or something like that. And this package, like I said, it's got a lot of moving parts. There's updating hardware that needs to be maintained. There's software protecting endpoints. There's software that looks for known vulnerabilities, things that are known out there, and stopping those. There's components in this that look at things that are unknown that just says, that seems like odd behavior. I'm going to let you know about this odd behavior. It behaves about something like what we know, but it's not exactly like that. What do you want me to do there? And then there's, I mean, it's quite a bit of stuff, but if you're saying, can we promise it will never be breached, that's not something we can always, that's not something anybody can really promise. What we can do is do our best to protect every device and make all the updates so that if, he said we can't stop somebody from clicking something, but if we can have everything being monitored, watched, looking for the known things, we can stop them from moving around the network. So like say they get to a certain computer, say, oh, I know, I saw that you just clicked that, you shouldn't click that, or hey, this looks odd, I'm not gonna let that happen, I'm gonna notify us in our console, and we can see that and make decisions about those things. So there's just a lot of pieces to this. It's not just one aspect.
Yeah, and as Lauren says, we can't prevent everything, but we can make it absolutely as hard as possible for every single, anybody that attempts to anything, we're going to make it, and we will die on that sword. We will try our best, everything we can to, and this is one of the tools that we have to make that happen. So.
Just to share a little statistic with you, I think like last I saw, like over 87% of schools have experienced a successful cyber attack. Over like 90% of cyber attacks come via phishing, and 70% of those are via email. And so just trying to, this package is trying to focus on what the current trends are. Of course, education
So, again, I cannot compete with pre-K students. Good tutoring. I do have artificial intelligence, and so I did use artificial intelligence in this slide. I'm going to attribute it for board policy.
Oh.
So if you need a slide like that, basically you just ask ChatGPT and give you a picture or a slideshow with lots of smiling faces.
That's what it is.
So we would need a motion to approve the 4.
Morgan, can I ask you a question? So will this updating be complete before the beginning of our new school year?
It will be right around that time, but it's
But
a
it won't
gradual
affect
process.
our starting the year?
Yeah, it'll be a gradual process, especially with the phones, because like I said,
Okay.
we need to do some.
And will it all be done remotely, or will we have to?
It's a combination of both. There
Okay.
is hardware that has to be installed and configured, and then there's also software systems that have to be configured. So it's a combination of
So
both.
you'll actually have to have our,
Our staff will do the physical installs when necessary, and then some of that training package that you saw in the package will be,
Right.
part of that is the configuration. Does that make sense?
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. If there's no further questions, all those in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr. Bennett.
thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen in the back.
Mr. Lott.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Last board meeting, I introduced 7 proposed board policies. Most of these came to us from NEFAC. I know some of you weren't here. I'll try to real briefly go over the reasons behind this. So we had 6 of them came from NEFAC, and those were primarily because of some new state board rule. One of those was some 4 to 5 Florida requirements. And I told those that were here that, you know, actually, Mr. Gore is already ahead of that and had already made those changes that just now came out in the proposed board change. So we're ahead of that game, but we do need to formalize that because of a new state board rule change. So there were some changes in regard to Florida Statute 435.12, which dealt with some background screening and contractors. There's a new system the state is rolling out, and it's going to be some heartburn for us in that we all have to basically, most of our employees will have to go back and get re-fingerprinted because they've created this new clearinghouse. And that clearinghouse, you know, in the long run will be good because as people move from one district to the other, we won't have to re-fingerprint people. So it's a good move, it's a good thing, but some of the language that we needed to update in our policies in regard to that clearinghouse. And then there were some new changes in regard to federal regulations for federal food applications for breakfast and lunch programs. And so those food procurement changes there were a result of that. And then the only one that didn't come from NEFAC was 4.05 in regard to examinations, and that came as a request from our principals who wanted some flexibility on those exam days. And our current policy said we're limited to 2 exams per day. They wanted to extend that to 3. Many kids don't even take 3 exams a day or 2 exams a day because a lot of those tests are now incorporated within end-of-course exams and so forth. So a kid will be sitting there for a period, or they'll be checking out for a period because they don't have an exam. The principals thought that that would make their life easier, so that's what we do here. We support our schools as best we can. As you look through this, were there any other questions that we need to address or answer?
I had a question about where it says that you have to educate the parents on the 4 to 5 program, right? And I know that we do have it on our website, but is that enough?
Well, I'll turn that over to Mr. Gore.
Yeah, the statute says we have to make it available.
Oh, make it available, because
Yeah,
it says
so-
here training, that's why I
Yeah,
was.
so what we do is we share the information on our website, and we also share it on our Facebook website at the beginning of the school year. And so that meets, according to Office of State Schools, that meets the requirement
Okay.
through statute, and that's what we do.
Good.
Mr. Gore does a very good job of keeping us in good graces with safe schools. I'll say that. He's got to
We
speak up.
appreciate it.
Any other questions? The next board meeting, I'll come back and I'll ask you to, for final approval. So far, there's been no public comments or anything that have been addressed from the public in regard to these proposed board changes, board policy changes.
Thank you, Mr. Lott. Mrs. Lake?
Thank you for allowing us to slide this one in the 11th hour. We just had a ratification by the staff for an MOU for updating our supplement schedule. So the reason this is coming to you as an MOU is it's outside negotiations, and we wanted the supplement schedule to start with the start of the school year, since traditionally we don't retro supplements. That way, staff would have the full year earnings for this increase. So you'll see the attachment is, we did a 10% increase across the board. We excluded some supplements. Those were excluded to come back up under discussions when we have compensation, because they're ones that roll with the employee. And then we added some new ones to honor some experience in some coaching areas. And then on the last page, we gave some parameters to follow the coaching and club sponsor experience supplement. So I'm here today to just get approval from the board to move forward with this MOU.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Lake.
Thank you.
This time, we'd like to welcome all our visitors, and if anyone has any public comments they'd like to make, now is your time. Seeing none, we're gonna move on ahead to our minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
There are no changes or no objections. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Now we'll move to our consent agenda. Everyone has had a chance to look at that. Is there anything that needs to be changed or added to the consent agenda? Okay. Mrs. Campbell, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. I've had them answered.
Mrs. Baxter?
And I have no questions.
Mr. Whitehurst?
All my questions are answered.
Mrs. Klemenzinski?
All mine were answered too.
Sounds good to me too. Mine have all been answered. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries. We'll now move to our finance consent agenda. Has everyone had a chance to look at that, or are there any questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda on finance items.
So moved.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries. That's what happens when the chairman's reading 2 steps ahead, is where his brain is at. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have much, just I hope everyone had a wonderful spring break and a happy Easter weekend with family and our friends, and spring break trips. I know there were some that traveled far and wide and they had a good time. Everybody's jumping in, talking to admin, talking to some teachers, and they're getting ready for the testing to start, and I know they're excited, little anxious, but excited with all that. And the presentations that were shown today were amazing, and I know we mentioned it, but I would love to entertain that mentor program between Chiefland and Bronson with those schools, and I think actually Cedar Key is doing it with the older students within the school. I think they started, the SAC committee started that.
Oh, no, that's been going on
A long time, and then they added to it, like some incentives 2 years ago, I remember, for the older mentors, taking care of the younger ones, so that was great. There, I don't have a picture, I didn't share it with Mr. Bennett, unfortunately, I'll get it for next meeting, but American Red Cross had contacted me, and I forwarded some of the curriculum to admin, and they come in free of charge, and they have their own instructors, and it's called Preparing with Pedro, and they have different segments at different times of year. And Mrs. Cribbs was kind enough to start it, kind of do like a little pilot a few weeks ago during special areas. And so I'll share a picture, but that went over very well, and they did hurricane preparedness. And the kids, when I went there, they were laser focused. And one of the instructors actually dresses up as a penguin and comes in, and it was a lot of fun. So it looks like the next school is Yankeetown. I think Dee's going to try and find a date and do a big assembly where Pedro comes in for hurricanes. And then hopefully we can get into Cedar Key before the end of the year with a smaller group. But I'll share pictures next time. It was cool, very cool. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start with our board comments. We'll start with Mrs. Campbell.
Well, Cedar Key is busy coming to the end of the year, getting ready for testing, and we have some of our students participating in the regional track and field meet. Extremely proud of them. And we have an Avid Family STEM night scheduled, and it looks to be a really exciting evening with a lot of science, tech, and English and math activities that the teachers and the classes are going to share. So I'm looking forward to that.
Mrs. Baxter?
Well, about the same. At Chiefland Elementary, they're doing different events to kick off testing, and they have the community coming in next week to decorate the hallways to motivate the kids. And they've scheduled a water day for those children in K2 that are proficient, and for grades 3-5, they'll get to go to Camp Colaqua. At CMHS, they have a career expo sponsored by Career Source tomorrow, and I think kids from all over the county are attending. And they have a drama production starting this weekend, Freaky Friday. And that's all they have.
Mr. Whitehurst?
First, thank y'all for allowing me to miss last meeting. It's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime experience kind of thing to go see the Gators win the national championships. I appreciate y'all allowing me to miss a meeting. Today is Bus Driver Appreciation Day. Thank y'all for all the bus drivers out there and all they do. Like I say, driving, taking care of the kids. There's just so much that goes along with that. So thankful for all them. Earth Day today. So today's Earth Day too. Yeah, all the days. Thank goodness we have a rural county where I thought we take care of the environment. You can say the other places it was good, but I thought we're all about that. Certainly everybody had a restful spring break. Back at it. Have all the testing, PM3 testing coming up, and everybody's ready to get through that. And like I say, got progress reports this week, and so it's halfway through the last 9 weeks. So before we know it, it'll be graduation. So looking forward to that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lindsay?
Yeah, it's a busy time of year, but it's an exciting time of year. Yankeetown has their basket auction on Thursday night, and already starting the kindergarten and pre-K roundup. And congratulations to Chiefland. Moving on to regionals in baseball. Is it this week? Adam, do they play? Are you out? It's okay. I think it's this week. It's this week or next week, but yeah, so congratulations.
Man's too busy keeping people safe. He ain't got
Yeah. We'll all root for them.
Plays, so I should know.
Yeah. And that's it. That's all I have.
Thank you, ma'am. I don't have much. I'm just fascinated that it just seems like this year just started. This Joker's almost over. I like seeing it. For those of us that lived through the pandemic, ain't it cool to see kids going on trips again?
Yes.
And those kind of things. I think that's neat. And then we got the banquets and the various things that all indicate what time of year it is. It's pretty amazing how fast it went. Everybody's done a great job so far, so we're looking forward to more exciting things. And if there is nothing else,
Well,
I was shooting for 10:30.
Okay,
30 seconds.
it'll be 10:30. I didn't know if Mrs. Campbell was going to mention it, so I just slid it to the side. But I wanted to say thank you to Mrs. Baxter and Mrs. Campbell last night. for inviting me to what was an incredible evening. It was the Delta Kappa Gamma International Society for the Key Women Educators. And they inducted 2 of our teachers down there in Cedar Key, Jessie Robinson and Jenny Brown, and they also gave out some financial aid to Lena Londano, right? Lena Londano and Vicky Shuey. But the collaboration of these women to sit back and listen to them, and I actually was able to be introduced to 2 of my husband's teachers, one elementary, one high school, that were there, and I heard some great stories. But to hear that organization started in 1929, and they had the book of all the signatures when you get inducted by all these brilliant women that have done so much for our students, and just some have taught each other. It was amazing to hear. But thank you for inviting me. It was wonderful to experience that.
Thank you.
10:31.
Look at y'all.
Sorry.
If there's nothing else, meeting adjourned.